Today, I want to talk to everyone about a topic that is not far from each of us. If you buy stocks of a listed company and become a shareholder of that company, when the company wants to invest billions or even tens of billions to acquire another company, do you have the qualification to say agree or disagree? First, let me tell you a true story. In April 2019, a company perfectly bypassed a core rule of the US stock market in order to acquire shares. Shareholders' consent is only required when the company issues more than 20% of the new shares for the acquisition. In this way, 38 billion and a major decision that could change the fate of the company. From start to finish, shareholders did not even have a chance to vote or say no. Meanwhile, over 19% of listed companies in the United States engaged in merger and acquisition during the 1990s and 2000s. But a large number of acquisitions led to a drop in the acquired stock price at the time of announcement, results in particularly severe shareholder losses from large-scale transactions. But in the UK market, Class 1 mandatory voting transactions of the same size generate an average of 37 million in revenue for shareholders, and a similar transaction bring a total revenue of 15 billion to shareholders. This case is the core issue we are going to discuss today. Should shareholders be allowed to participate in major acquisition decisions of listed companies? If so, to what extent should one have the right to speak? Firstly, we must acknowledge that there have been very clear opposing views regarding this issue. Over the past 40 years, many scholars in the legal and business community in the United States have firmly believed that involving shareholders in acquisition decisions is very costly and low-return matter. Their core concerns mainly include 4 points. Firstly, it is too expensive to troublesome. OpenKnight say that to organize a shareholder vote, you need to prepare a distribute SEC statement, count and verify every vote, which will incur huge compliance and manpower costs. And the shareholder benefits that this system can bring are very limited, which is completely not worth to lose. Secondly, being too lazy and missing out on good opportunities, like fighting and the timing is fleeting. If every major acquisition has to wait for shareholder voting to go through the process, it is like to draw on for several weeks, and the high-quality acquisition opportunity that could have made the company money will be missed. Thirdly, the rules are too difficult to establish. OpenKnight say, how do you define what kind of acquisition require shareholder voting? If we draw a line based on transaction size, the management can completely control the acquisition size just below the right line, bypass voting, and the rule becomes a piece of paper. Firstly, the opposing proposed two alternative solutions that do not require mandatory voting. One is market-oriented legal response, which grants the quant the power to halt transactions that cause a decline in the acquirer's stock price after the acquisition announcement. The second option is for the acquirer to issue a corresponding proportion to option to shareholders, allowing them to sell back their stocks to the company at a fixed price before the acquisition announcement, directly compensating for the losses suffered by shareholders due to inefficient acquisition. Interestingly, the practice in the UK have overturned all four core concerns of options. This is also one of the core reasons for supporting shareholder participation in the acquisition decisions. Firstly, the long-term practice in the market, such as the UK, have validated the effectiveness and feasibility of the system. The Class 1 mandatory voting rules implemented in the UK since the 1970s have passed many years of market testing. Class 1 transactions in the high-risk acquisition can bring higher returns to shareholders. The development of digital and internet technology has reduced the cost related to voting and will not constitute the burden. All Class 1 transactions in the simple complete the voting process within 1 month after the announcement, and the system is very smoothly without any system issues. There has been no situation of denying high-quality opportunity. Secondly, it conforms to the core legal principles of corporate governance. Shareholders, as owner of the company, have the right of being informed and have a say in all decisions that may affect the company value. Thirdly, effectively covering agency problems and avoiding the damage of huge shareholder worth. There are many agency problems in the acquisition of US listed companies. Management often engage in inefficient acquisition with excessive payment in order to expand the company size and gain benefit. And the return on acquisition announcement that bypass shareholder voting is 3% lower than similar transaction. Shareholders participating in decision-making through voting can effectively limit the expansion and excessive payment behavior of management, reducing value damage from the source. Firstly, the potential negative issues that options are concerned about are unfounded, and the benefit of the system far outweigh the cost. And now we can clearly answer the second question. To what extent should shareholders participate in the company's acquisition decisions? The answer is very clear. What we want to give shareholders is not right to dictate every small acquisitions, but the binding voting rights for major acquisitions that may affect the fate of the company. So based on a relative scale of 25%, as long as the criteria for total assist profits and determination are triggered, a shareholder meeting must be holding to decide whether the acquisition can be carried out through shareholder voting. The voting results are mandatory and binding. At the same time, we can use this rule as the default rule for the company listing, while also reserving the right for shareholders to choose to withdraw, balance the rule and the personality needs of the company. More importantly, shareholders are the owner of the company, and management is the employer invited by shareholders. A billion or tens of billion acquisition can determine the life or death of the company for the next 10 years. As the owner of the company, shareholders do not even have the right to decide whether to agree or not, which is unreasonable. In the case of Western Oil we are discussing today, if the shareholders have voting rights at that time, they would most likely not have agreed to the acquisition that would have cut their worth in half. After all, a company that truly respects its shareholder, it can go more further and steadily. Thanks for your listening. My talking is over.